The universe is a dream. Picture waking up one morning and discovering that everything you've known was simply part of an intricate, endless dream. The conversations you had, the paths you traveled, the warmth of sunlight on your face, all of it unreal. Now picture never emerging from that dream. Since consciousness is our only gateway to experiencing reality, how can we be certain that what we call the universe isn't itself a dream? Everything we perceive passes through our senses, light flooding into our eyes, sound resonating in our ears, electrical impulses rushing through our nervous system to our brain, which then translates these impulses into what we call reality. I'd love for you to share in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. It's remarkable how these ideas and reflections bring us together across distances. If these thoughtful journeys resonate with you, consider subscribing so we can keep exploring these narratives together. Now, make yourself comfortable. Let your mind ease into stillness and allow your thoughts to wander as we explore these captivating paradoxes and mysteries. Yet these impulses are merely interpretations, not reality in its raw form. When you dream each night, your brain assembles complete worlds from fragments of memory, emotion, and wandering thoughts. You can see, hear, touch, and even feel pain in dreams, despite none of it having physical substance. If dreams can seem as authentic as waking moments, what evidence do we possess that our waking existence isn't simply another dream, one that persists a little longer? Philosophers and scientists have grappled with this puzzle across the ages. Plato described a realm of forms, a hidden reality lying beyond our perception. Descartes doubted everything but his capacity to think, arriving at his renowned insight, "I think, therefore I am." In more recent times, physicists have proposed that reality itself may be far less solid than we imagine. Certain theories describe the universe as functioning like a simulation, ruled by mathematical principles rather than tangible matter. If space and time are merely mental constructs, then what we experience as reality might be nothing more than an elaborate mirage. Lucid dreaming provides a striking parallel. In such dreams, the dreamer recognizes they're dreaming. Some even master the ability to reshape these dreams, altering surroundings or bending objects through pure intention. While awake, we sense ourselves constrained by physical laws, yet in dreams, those constraints dissolve, gravity disappears, flight becomes possible, time behaves strangely. If the universe is a dream, perhaps we simply haven't realized we're dreaming, like a sleeper unaware of their sleeping state. Think about how time unfolds in dreams. You might live through hours or entire days within mere minutes. Neuroscientists tell us that our sense of time isn't fixed, but malleable, shaped by how our brains interpret information. If time can expand and compress in dreams, might our waking perception of time also be illusory? And if that's true, what does it reveal about the fabric of reality? Quantum mechanics deepens this enigma. At the tiniest scales, reality behaves peculiarly. Particles hover in multiple states simultaneously until someone observes them, a phenomenon called superposition. The simple act of observation transforms the outcome, as though reality requires a witness to become concrete. If reality exists only when observed, does it truly exist when no one is watching? Dreams operate on similar principles. Look away, and the scenery transforms. Focus on something fresh, and it materializes as though it had always been present. Some philosophers suggest that consciousness isn't merely a product of the brain, but the very foundation of reality itself. In this perspective, the universe isn't a collection of material things, but an immense field of consciousness imagining itself into being. Ancient wisdom echoes this notion. Hindu philosophy speaks of Maya, describing the world as illusion. Buddhist teachings view the self as temporary rather than permanent. Even Western literature and poetry have long entertained the possibility that the world is dreamlike. Suppose for a moment you awakened in an entirely different realm, with no recollection of this one. Everything you once held as truth dissolves. How would you determine which reality is genuine? You couldn't. This reveals something both unsettling and intriguing. If dreams can feel authentic, then perhaps our waking life feels real simply because we haven't yet awakened from it. Some individuals describe fleeting moments of unreality, when the world suddenly feels artificial, like watching a theatrical performance or standing on a movie set. This experience, called derealization, can be disorienting. It implies that even while awake, our sense of reality isn't steady. If reality were truly stable, why would it occasionally flicker? Then there's a matter of memory. In dreams, you readily accept impossible circumstances because your mind seamlessly fills the blanks. You might appear in an unfamiliar location, yet somehow know exactly where you stand. You might encounter a complete stranger, yet feel you've always known them. If our waking memories function similarly, what does that suggest about reality's consistency? How much of what we recall is genuine, and how much is merely a narrative? Our brain weaves to create coherence. If the universe is a dream, who is doing the dreaming? Some would answer, you. Others might propose something vaster, a shared consciousness or an unknowable presence beyond our understanding. If everything we know exists within a dream, then awakening might mean something radically different from our expectations. But how would we wake? And would we truly wish to? What's unsettling about this notion is how it undermines everything we assume. What's comforting is the possibility that reality might be far more malleable than we believed. If existence is a dream, perhaps we hold more creative power than we recognized. Perhaps we aren't merely passive witnesses, but active creators, sculpting the dream as it unfolds. Ultimately, whether the universe is a dream may not alter how we navigate our days. We still rise, work, connect with others, and feel both pleasure and sorrow. Yet considering that reality might not be as fixed as we suppose encourages us to question more deeply, perceive the world with renewed wonder, and welcome the mysterious. If nothing else, it transforms the mundane into something magical, and that alone makes it worth contemplating. Life is a puzzle. Life unfolds in pieces. Some fit perfectly, others seem like they belong to a different puzzle altogether. Every person, every experience, and every decision contributes to an overall picture that remains incomplete until the end. People spend years searching for the right pieces, often without knowing what the final image will be. From childhood, individuals start gathering pieces. Family provides the first set. The way parents talk, the routines of daily life, and the values taught all create an early foundation. Some pieces are handed down without question. A child raised in a home that values education might see school as a natural fit. Another child surrounded by instability may see uncertainty as the only predictable part of life. These early pieces shape perception. A person raised in a loving home may expect kindness from the world, while someone exposed to harshness might always brace for conflict. School introduces new pieces. Friendships form, teaches influence, and lessons extend beyond textbooks. A child learns that actions have consequences. Their words can both heal and wound, and that fitting in requires effort. Some pieces from this period fit easily, like a natural talent for math or an interest in history. Others feel forced, like trying to enjoy a subject that doesn't click. Adolescence complicates the puzzle. The certainty of childhood fades, friendships shift, identity feels uncertain. One day a person feels confident, the next, doubt takes over. The external pressures from parents, teachers, and peers add to the confusion. A teenager must decide which pieces to keep and which to discard. Not every lesson from childhood remains useful. Some beliefs need reshaping. A strict view of right and wrong might soften as new perspectives emerge. A fear of failure may become a motivation to improve. Adulthood presents the most challenging pieces. Career choices, relationships, and personal growth all demand attention. Some people find pieces that fit quickly. A person with a clear career path may feel a sense of direction early. Others struggle, trying different jobs and paths before finding something that makes sense. Relationships follow a similar pattern. Some friendships and romances fall into place effortlessly. Others take work. Some never fit, no matter how much effort is put in. Mistakes often feel like the wrong pieces. A poor career choice, A failed relationship or a bad decision can seem like setbacks. But even the wrong pieces serve a purpose. A job that doesn't work out might teach valuable skills. A failed relationship can clarify what truly matters in a partner. Each experience, whether good or bad, adds to the larger picture. Without wrong pieces, the right ones might never be recognized. Personal growth shifts the puzzle over time. What once seemed important might fade. A person who once sought approval from others may learn to prioritize personal fulfillment instead. A belief that once guided decisions may evolve with experience. The puzzle is never static. It expands, reshapes, and adjusts with each new phase of life. People also influence each other's puzzles. A mentor provides a missing piece by offering guidance. Even negative experiences contribute. A betrayal might teach caution. A disappointment might build resilience. Every interaction, whether positive or negative, shapes the final image. Unexpected events add complexity. A sudden loss, an unforeseen opportunity, or a drastic change can shift the puzzle's direction. Plans may no longer make sense. The picture that once seemed clear might blur. Adaptation becomes necessary. Some pieces must be rearranged, and some must be let go. The ability to adjust determines how well a person navigates life's uncertainties. The puzzle is never fully complete. Even in old age, new pieces emerge. A person may discover a new passion, reconnect with an old friend, or change a long-held belief. The search for pieces never ends. Some gaps remain, and that's part of the design. Life doesn't provide all the answers. The missing pieces keep curiosity alive, driving people to keep searching, learning, and growing. Some people try to force pieces where they don't belong. They might stay in a job that drains them because it looks good on paper. They might maintain relationships that cause pain because ending them feels like failure. Forcing pieces creates a distorted image, one that looks complete from a distance but feels wrong up close. The hardest part is knowing when to let go. A piece that once fit perfectly might no longer belong. A friendship that sustained you in college might fade as you both grow in different directions. A career that excited you at 25 might feel hollow at 40. Letting go doesn't mean the piece is wrong. It means the puzzle has changed. There's also the temptation to compare puzzles. People look at others and assume their image is clearer, more beautiful, more complete. But no one sees the full picture of someone else's life. What looks perfect from the outside might be held together by pieces that don't fit. What looks messy might be a work of art in progress. Every puzzle is unique. Some are vibrant and chaotic. Others are subtle and quiet. Some have bold, dramatic images. Others are soft and understated. There's no right way to build a life. Only the way that feels true to the person living it. The beauty of the puzzle is that it's never too late to add new pieces. A person who spent years in one career might discover a passion for something entirely different. Someone who avoided relationships might find unexpected connection later in life. The puzzle doesn't close. It keeps expanding as long as there's life to live. At the end, when the final pieces fall into place, the image that emerges might not be what was expected. It might be better. It might be different. But it will be yours, shaped by every choice, every mistake, every moment of joy and pain. And that makes it meaningful. Measuring time, or time measuring us. People think they control time. They mark it, track it, and divide it into neat sections. Clocks tick forward, and calendars flit from one day to the next. The work week follows a predictable rhythm, and the years stack up in careful order. But the question remains, do we measure time, or does time measure us? A person wakes up to an alarm set to start the day at a precise moment. The alarm doesn't care if they need more sleep. The workday starts at 9, ends at 5, meetings begin at sharp intervals, school bells ring, appointments slot into the open gaps on a schedule. Everything runs on time, yet time doesn't speed up or slow down to fit the plan. The seconds tick forward, steady and unbothered by the rush of human lives. A child experiences time differently. A summer break stretches out like an eternity, while a single school day drags on forever. In contrast, an adult looks back on a year and wonders where it went. The perception of time shifts based on age, experience, and even emotion. The same clock moves forward for both, but one experiences time as sluggish and drawn out, while the other finds it slipping away. Stress can alter the way time feels. When a person waits for test results, time crawls. When they rush through a deadline, time vanishes. A firefighter in a burning building may only have seconds to make a decision, yet those seconds stretch out in their mind. A driver who nearly crashes might recall the event in slow motion. The brain processes events differently under stress, making some moments feel elongated and others too brief to grasp. A person can measure time down to milliseconds, but they can't slow it or change its speed. Athletes rely on timers to capture the smallest differences between winning and losing. A runner crosses the finish line a fraction of a second before another, and that difference is recorded. Yet to the athletes, the race may have felt both incredibly fast and painfully slow at the same time. Their bodies move in real time, but their minds experience something different. People often say they don't have enough time. They try to manage it, schedule it, and control it. Time management techniques promise to help squeeze more productivity into the same 24 hours. Planners, apps, and reminders all attempt to keep time in check, yet no one ever adds more hours to the day. The sun rises and sets whether tasks are finished or not. Cultures approach time in different ways. Some view it as a rigid structure where being late is unacceptable. Others see it as flexible, where schedules serve as loose guidelines. In some places, an event starts when people arrive rather than at a set time. These perspectives shape how people live and work, but the actual passage of time remains the same. The sun moves across the sky at the same pace, no matter how humans interpret the schedule. History records time on a grand scale: the fall of an empire, the rise of a civilization, the span of a human life, all measured in years, decades, centuries. Yet time continues beyond these markers. The Earth rotated before humans invented a calendar, and will continue after they are gone. The stars burn before people gave them names, and will burn long after their names are forgotten. Time does not need measurement to exist. Technology has allowed for more precise tracking of time. Atomic clocks measure time so accurately that they lose only a fraction of a second over millions of years. GPS systems rely on exact time measurements to function properly. Satellites orbit Earth, adjusting for time differences caused by relativity. Even though humans measure time with precision, they cannot escape its effects. The body ages, the seasons change, and the universe continues expanding. Some scientists argue that time is an illusion, a human-made construct to make sense of change. They suggest that everything exists at once, and that time is simply a way to perceive motion. Others believe time is fundamental, an essential component of reality. If time stopped, would anything exist at all? The debate continues, but one fact remains. Humans experience time, whether or not they understand it fully. Memory plays a role in how time is perceived. A routine week blurs together, but an eventful day stands out. A vacation filled with new experiences feels long while it happens, but seems short when looking back. Time appears to slow down during moments of crisis and speed up during times of joy. This distortion makes time feel personal rather than fixed. It is not just a number on a clock, but a sensation shaped by what happens in life. Time and mortality go hand in hand. A child rarely considers the passing years, but an elderly person feels them deeply. Birthdays come faster as people age, not because time moves differently, but because each year becomes a smaller fraction of a life already lived. A 10-year-old feels a year as a 10th of their life, while a 60-year-old experiences it as just a 60th. The measurement does not change, but the experience of it does. The idea of time travel fascinates people. Stories explore the possibility of moving forward or backward in time, changing events or witnessing history firsthand. Science suggests that time travel to the future is theoretically possible through extreme speeds or gravitational forces, but traveling to the past remains uncertain. Even if time travel were possible, would it change the past or create a new timeline? Would a traveler find themselves outside of time's grasp, or would they still be bound by its rules? Philosophers and scientists alike ponder time's nature. Some believe in determinism, where every event is set in motion by the past, making free will an illusion. Others argue that time is open-ended, shaped by choices and possibilities. If time is predetermined, then every moment unfolds exactly as it must. If it is not, then the future remains unwritten. Both views lead to deep questions about existence and purpose. Time also influences relationships. People feel the weight of time in long-distance friendships, lost connections, and aging loved ones. A conversation with a grandparent might feel routine until time makes it impossible. A childhood friend may seem frozen in the past until a reunion reveals how much they have changed. Time separates people, but it also connects them. Memories allow the past to exist in the present, even as time moves forward. Waiting reveals how deeply humans are affected by time. A person waiting for news feels every second. A person waiting for a loved one to return home counts the minutes. But when engaged in something enjoyable, hours pass unnoticed. Time doesn't change. Only the awareness of it does. Some people try to escape time's grip by staying busy, filling every moment with activity. Others slow down, savoring each experience. But no matter the approach, time continues at its own pace. It doesn't bend to ambition or patience. It simply moves indifferent to how it is experienced. In the end, time moves with or without human measurement. It does not care about schedules, deadlines, or birthdays. It does not wait for anyone to be ready. People carve their lives into hours, minutes, and seconds, but time itself remains indifferent. They measure time, but time also measures them through their actions, experiences, and the inevitable passage of their lives. Stardust and self-discovery. It was something else. The oxygen in your lungs, the carbon in your muscles, the calcium in your bones. Each element was forged in the intense heat of a star. Stars burn for millions of billions of years. When they die, some explode in the supernova, scattering their elements across the universe. Those elements form new stars, planets, and eventually life. This means every person is made of stardust, a physical connection between human life and the cosmos. People tend to think of themselves as separate from nature. Cities, technology, and human progress seem to push further away from the raw materials of the earth. But no matter how much the world changes, the body remains a collection of ancient atoms, each one passing through time and space before finding its way into human form. This idea challenges the way people define identity. A person is not just their thoughts, memories, or experiences. They are also matter built from the remnants of something much older than humanity itself. Understanding this origin changes the way people see themselves. The body is not something static, it is always in motion, always changing. Cells regenerate constantly. Old ones die, and new ones take their place. Some parts of the body replace themselves faster than others. The skin, for example, renews itself every few weeks. Other cells last longer. The bones, all appearing solid, undergo a slow transformation as old material breaks down and new material takes its place. Even the brain, the seat of consciousness, reshapes itself in response to learning and experience. This means that no person remains physically the same for very long. If every part of the body is temporary, what does that say about identity? People often define themselves based on past experiences, personal choices, or relationships, but beneath all of that, the body itself is shifting. The molecules making up a person today will not be the same molecules that make them up in the future. Despite that, a sense of self remains. A person remembers their childhood, even though none of the cells from that time remain. The atoms change, but the continuity of experience stays intact. This paradox raises questions about permanence and change. If a person is made of stardust, and that stardust is always moving, what keeps a person the same? The mind plays a key role. While the body replaces its parts, the brain forms pathways that preserve memory and behavior. These pathways are shaped by experience but also influenced by the physical structure of the brain. The neurons, the chemical signals, the electrical impulses. These elements work together to create continuity. But even the brain is not fixed. It adapts, rewires itself, and grows in response to new situations. Identity, then, is not just something a person has. It is something a person builds over time. People often struggle with change. Losing something familiar can feel like losing a part of oneself. But when viewed through the lens of Stardust, change becomes a natural process. The body has never been static. It is always shifting, always responding to its environment. This applies not just to biology, but to personal growth as well. People evolve through their choices, just as their cells regenerate. Some changes are small, barely noticeable. Others are drastic, reshaping a person's life in unexpected ways. But all of it is part of the same cycle: the movement of atoms, the reorganization of matter, the continuous renewal of self. The connection between humans and the universe extends beyond the body. The Earth itself formed from the remnants of older stars. Every rock, ocean, and mountain shares the same cosmic origin as the human body. The air people breathe was once part of something else. The water in the oceans has cycled through countless forms: rain, rivers, glaciers, living beings. This means that nothing truly exists in isolation. Everything is part of a larger system, constantly exchanging matter and energy. This realization can change the way people see their place in the world. It is easy to feel small in the face of the universe, the vastness of space, the scale of time, the unknown depths of reality. These things can be overwhelming, but instead of making a person feel insignificant, they can do the opposite. If a person is made of the same material as the stars, then they are as much a part of the universe as anything else. They belong, not because of what they do, but simply because they exist. This perspective can also influence the way people relate to one another. If everyone is made of stardust, then every person shares a fundamental connection. Differences in background, belief, and experience may shape identity, but beneath all of that, the same atoms flow through every human being. This does not erase individuality. Instead, it highlights a common origin, a shared history written in the fabric of the cosmos. Understanding this can lead to a greater sense of responsibility. People often view themselves as separate from the world around them, but in reality, they are deeply intertwined with it. The choices made today will shape the future, just as the remnants of past stars shape the present. This applies not just on a cosmic scale, but in daily life. The way people treat each other, the way they interact with the environment, the way they think about progress, all of these things are connected. For many, this idea brings comfort. The thought that nothing is truly lost, only transformed, can be reassuring. A person's atoms will continue their journey long after they are gone. They may become part of something else: a tree, a cloud, another living being. The cycle does not end, it only changes form. This does not make loss easier, but it provides a different way to see it. Nothing disappears completely, everything continues in some way. Some might question whether this scientific perspective can hold personal meaning. The idea of stardust may sound poetic, but does it change anything practical? In a way, it does. It shifts the focus from seeing life as something isolated to seeing it as part of something much larger. It challenges the notion of permanence, making it easier to accept change. It encourages a deeper appreciation for existence itself. If life is a fleeting arrangement of stardust, then every moment, every experience, every connection matters, not because they last forever, but because they exist at all. This does not mean people should abandon personal struggles or ignore hardships. Instead, it suggests a way to frame them differently. Struggles are part of the process of change. They are as natural as the shifting of atoms, the formation of new stars, the renewal of life. No single moment defines a person entirely. Like the stars before them, they will change, adapt, and leave behind something that carries forward. Stardust does not stay in one place, neither do people. Their journey continues, shaped by the same forces that created the universe itself. Reality, illusion, or truth. Reality is something we experience every day. We wake up, move through the world, interact with people, and go about our lives. But how do we know that what we see, hear, and feel is real? What if the world around us is not what it seems? Our senses shape our understanding of reality. We rely on sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell to navigate the world. But our senses are not perfect. Optical illusions trick our eyes into seeing things that are not there. Sound waves can be manipulated to create frequencies that make us hear something that does not exist. Virtual reality devices convince our brains that we are standing on the edge of a cliff when we are actually in a room with a headset on. If our senses can be deceived so easily, how much of what we experience is real? The brain interprets signals and constructs a version of reality based on them. The colors we see do not exist in the world, but are our brain's way of processing different wavelengths of light. The way food tastes depends on how our brain combines smell, texture, and chemical interactions. Even the sense of time is subjective, with moments seeming to stretch or shrink depending on our focus and emotions. If the brain builds reality rather than simply perceiving it, then reality itself is not an absolute truth, but a personal experience. People living in the same world can perceive it differently. A person who is colorblind does not see the same sky as someone with full color vision. A person who is deaf does not experience the same sounds that a hearing person does. Even two people with the same senses may see a situation differently based on past experiences, cultural background, or mood. This raises a question. Is reality something that exists outside of us? Or is it something our minds create? Philosophers have debated this for centuries. Plato suggested that we live in a shadow world, only seeing reflections of the deeper reality we can never fully grasp. Descartes questioned whether anything beyond his own thoughts could be proven to exist. More recently, scientists have explored how the brain constructs reality, showing that perception is shaped by expectations, memory, and cognitive biases. If reality is something our brains assemble from incomplete information, it may not be as objective as we assume. Science fiction has long explored the idea that what we consider reality might be an illusion. Movies and books have imagined worlds where people live inside simulations, unaware that their experiences are not real. The idea is not far from scientific discussions about the nature of reality. Some physicists propose that the universe itself could be a kind of simulation, with the laws of physics acting as a program that governs how everything functions. While this idea remains speculative, it highlights how little we truly understand about what reality is. Dreams offer another way to question reality. When we dream, we experience events that feel real at the time. We see places, hear voices, and feel emotions. Sometimes we wake up with a strong memory of something that never happened. If dreams can create a temporary reality that feels real, what separates the waking world from the dream world? Some people experience lucid dreams, where they become aware that they are dreaming and can even control their actions. If we could control our perception in waking life the way we do in a lucid dream, would we be shaping reality itself? The role of technology in shaping reality is becoming more significant. Augmented reality overlays digital images onto the physical world. Artificial intelligence can generate voices, faces, and entire conversations that never existed. The rise of deepfake technology makes it harder to distinguish between real and artificial content. If we reach a point where technology can create perfect simulations, will we still be able to trust our senses? Will reality become a choice rather than a fixed experience? Quantum mechanics presents another challenge to our understanding of reality. Particles at the quantum level behave unpredictably, existing in multiple states until observed. The famous Schrodinger's cat thought experiment describes a cat in a box that is both alive and dead until someone looks inside. This suggests that observation itself shapes reality rather than reality existing independently of perception. If this applies beyond the quantum scale, then the idea of a solid, unchanging world may be an illusion. Different cultures have different views on reality. Many Eastern philosophies see reality as something fluid rather than fixed. In Buddhism, reality is considered an illusion shaped by human desires and attachments. Hinduism describes a concept called Maya, in which the physical world is seen as a veil hiding a deeper truth. Indigenous cultures often view reality as interconnected, where the separation between the physical and spiritual is not as rigid as in Western thought. If reality is perceived differently across cultures, does that mean there is no single reality? Psychological conditions can alter reality in dramatic ways. Hallucinations can make people see or hear things that are not there. Schizophrenia can create an entirely different world inside the mind of a person experiencing it. Psychedelic substances can shift perception, making colors more vivid, sounds more intense, and time feel different. People who experience near-death experiences often report sensations that feel more real than ordinary life. If different brain states can produce different versions of reality, how do we define what is truly real? Memory is another unreliable factor in shaping reality. Our memories are not perfect recordings of the past, but reconstructions that change over time. Two people can remember the same event differently, each convinced their version is the truth. False memories can be implanted, making people believe things that never happened. If our sense of self is built on memory, and memory is unreliable, then our understanding of reality is also unstable. Some scientists suggest that reality is a mental construct. The way we categorize objects, emotions, and experiences depends on language and culture. Words shape perception, defining what we notice and how we interpret it. If a language lacks a word for a color, the speakers of that language may not perceive that color in the same way. If a society does not have a concept for a particular emotion, its members may not experience it in the same way others do. This raises the possibility that reality is not something we discover, but something we create. The way we interact with time also affects our sense of reality. Some animals live entirely in the present, with no concept of past or future. Humans, on the other hand, constantly anticipate what will happen next and reflect on what has already occurred. But time itself is not as rigid as we perceive it. Relativity shows that time moves differently depending on gravity and speed. A person traveling at near to light speed would experience time more slowly than someone on Earth. If time is not fixed, then our perception of reality, which depends on time, is also flexible. The question of whether reality is an illusion or the truth may not have a simple answer. What we experience is shaped by perception, memory, culture, technology, and even physics. If reality is a construct of mind, then each person's experience of reality is unique. If reality exists independently of perception, we still have no direct way of knowing it. The deeper we look into the nature of reality, the less certain it becomes. For the last time you remembered. Most people don't think about the last time their name will be spoken. It's not something that comes up in daily conversation. But at some point, there will be a final moment when someone thinks about you. It might be days, years, or centuries after you're gone. When that happens, what does it mean for your existence? Does it mean anything at all? A person's memory fades in stages. Immediately after they pass, the people who knew them well think about them often. Friends recall conversations, family members remember shared moments, and coworkers bring up their habits. But as time moves forward, those memories become less frequent. A son remembers his father daily, then only on holidays, then only when a smell or a song triggers a thought. Eventually, there will be no one left who remembers what a person's voice sounded like or what they enjoyed for breakfast. Some names persist longer than others. Historical figures, writers, artists, and scientists leave behind work that keeps them in the conversation. Someone may read a novel written 100 years ago and wonder about the person who wrote it. A scientist's name might stay in textbooks long after the people they knew are gone, but even those names have a limit. The farther back in history you go, the fewer names survive. Even the pharaohs of Egypt, whose tombs and monuments still stand, are mostly reduced to a name on a plaque. The details of who they were as people are long lost. Consider the case of an ordinary person, someone who lived a quiet life, loved their family, worked an honest job, and passed away after a long life. They may have touched hundreds of lives, but within a few generations, their name will disappear from daily memory. Their great-grandchildren may hear stories, but by the time those great-grandchildren have children of their own, the details fade. Photos might sit in a box in an attic, but without context, they become images of strangers. Eventually, those images get discarded or lost. Some people leave behind records that extend their memory a little longer. Diaries, letters, or videos might keep a name alive for an extra generation or two. But even those will eventually be unreadable, misplaced, or ignored. Digital storage offers some sense of permanence, but files get deleted, formats change, and servers shut down. The idea that everything posted online lasts forever is misleading. Websites disappear, accounts get closed. Without active effort, digital footprints fade like everything else. The thought of being forgotten unsettles many people. Some try to leave a lasting legacy by writing books, making art, or achieving something that history will record. Others focus on personal legacy, ensuring their children and grandchildren pass down stories. A few go further, setting up scholarships, foundations, or businesses in their name. These efforts can extend memory, but they don't make it permanent. For most people, memory lasts in stories. A grandmother tells a child about her own mother. A friend repeats a joke that someone once told them. A phrase or habit lives on in a family without anyone realizing where it started. In this way, influence outlives memory. A person may be forgotten, but something they said or did continues in small ways. The lesson a father teaches his son may shape the way that son raises his own children. A stranger's kindness might inspire someone to be kinder in return. The person is gone, but the ripple effect of their life continues. Some people are remembered because of tragic events. Criminals, dictators, and infamous figures sometimes have their names repeated for centuries. Their stories serve as warnings, lessons, or curiosities. But even those names eventually fade. The world moves on. New names replace old ones in history books. The people who lived through those events die. Only the most famous or infamous remain. Even then, their names become just that, names. The details of their personalities, their voices, and their daily routines disappear. Technology makes it possible to preserve voices, images, and even interactive versions of people. Artificial intelligence can now replicate speech patterns and writing styles. Video archives keep faces visible for future generations. But watching a video of someone who has been gone for decades isn't the same as knowing them. A recording can capture words, but it can't capture presence. It can't replicate the way a person made others feel when they entered a room, or the way they laughed at their own jokes. There's also the question of whether being remembered matters at all. Some people spend their lives trying to be known, only to realize too late that fame doesn't guarantee meaning. Others live quiet lives, content to focus on their loved ones, with no concern for how long their name will last. In the end, does it change anything if someone is remembered for 100 years instead of 10? If no one ever says your name again, does that mean your life was any less valuable? A different way to look at it is through impact rather than memory. If a person changes one life, even in a small way, their existence has significance. A teacher who encourages a student to pursue their passion might never be remembered by name, but their influence shapes the future. A nurse who comforts a patient in their final moments might not be mentioned in any history book, but for that patient, they mattered. A stranger who gives directions to someone lost might not think twice about the encounter, but to the lost person, that small kindness could change their day. The world is built on these invisible moments of influence. At some point, every person reaches their final mention. There will be a last time their name is spoken, a last time their image is looked at, a last time someone wonders about them. This isn't something to fear, it's simply part of existence. Everything fades, the sun will one day burn out, the earth will be gone, everything that ever happened will be lost to time. That doesn't make the present moment any less real. It doesn't make love, kindness, or effort meaningless. It simply means that life is about living, not being remembered. Those who seek meaning in memory often miss the deeper truth. The mark left on the world isn't in how long a name lasts. It's in how deeply a person lived. If a child laughs at a joke their grandfather once told, that laughter exists now, in the present. If a friend remembers an old conversation and smiles, that moment of happiness is real. Memory matters, but it isn't the measure of a life. A life is measured by the moments that were lived, the people who were touched, and the love that was shared. Whether or not anyone remembers it in the end. Are we dreaming now? People wake up in the morning, stretch, and shake off sleep as if it were something separate from the real world. The dreams feel real when you're in them. You don't question them as they happen. It's only after waking up that you see the gaps, the strange shifts, the things that don't make sense. If dreams can trick the mind so completely, what's stopping waking life from being another version of the same thing? Every night, the mind builds entire worlds from nothing. It creates places, faces, and situations that seem as real as anything experienced during the day. It generates emotions, conflict, fear, and joy. If the mind can do this in sleep, why assume it stops during waking hours? A dream doesn't announce itself. It doesn't say this isn't real. It simply unfolds, and the person experiencing it believes every moment. Reality could be doing the same thing. People trust waking life because it follows rules, gravity works, time moves forward, actions have consequences. Dreams break those rules. They shift without warning, people change faces, locations shift. But what if the mind creates the rules of reality, just as it creates the shifting landscapes of dreams? What if stability is part of the illusion? There's no guarantee that things exist the way they appear. The mind fills in blanks. It assumes continuity. It smooths out inconsistencies. But assumptions don't make something real. Imagine a person dreaming that they are walking through their home. Everything looks as it should, the furniture's in place, the lights are on. It all seems normal. Then they notice something off. A picture frame is upside down, the television is missing. They wake up and realize it was a dream. But during the dream, their brain convinced them that it was real. If the mind can do that in sleep, it can do it at any time. There's no reason to believe it stops after waking. Philosophers and scientists have questioned reality for centuries. René Descartes suggested that senses cannot be trusted. He reasoned that, because the mind can be fooled, the only thing he could be sure of was that he was thinking. That's where the phrase, "I think, therefore I am," comes from. The fact that he was aware of his own thoughts was the only proof he had of existence. Everything else, including the physical world, could be an illusion. Modern science adds more to the puzzle. Quantum mechanics shows that particles behave differently when observed. This suggests that reality change is based on perception. If reality shifts depending on whether someone is watching, then how stable is it really? The brain processes sensory information and turns it into experience, but it doesn't interact with the world directly. It receives electrical signals and interprets them. If the signals were artificial, the experience would be the same. A person plugged into a simulation wouldn't know they were in one unless something gave it away. There is no way to be certain that the signals coming into the brain reflect an external world instead of something else. Think about déjà vu. It's the feeling that something has happened before, even though it hasn't. It's like remembering the future. It happens suddenly, without warning, and disappears just as fast. Science explains it as a glitch in memory processing, but that doesn't make it feel any less strange. What if déjà vu is a momentary glimpse at another version of reality? What if it's proof that time isn't as linear as it seems? If the brain can make a person feel like they've lived the moment before, then their experience of time isn't as solid as they believe. Lucid dreaming adds another layer. In a lucid dream, the dreamer realizes they are dreaming and sometimes takes control. They can choose where to go, what to do, and even manipulate the world around them. But before that realization, the dream feels real. If waking life is also a kind of dream, what happens if someone becomes lucid? What if realization leads to control? If a person can alter their dream world by recognizing it as a dream, could they alter reality the same way? Some people claim to experience moments of clarity where everything feels unreal, like a dream that could fade at any second. This is known as derealization. It's a strange feeling. The world looks normal, but it doesn't feel right. It's as if something fundamental was missing, something just beyond reach. Some describe it as standing on the edge of waking up but never quite getting there. If waking life is just another layer of dreaming, then derealization could be the first step towards seeing through the illusion. Even memory isn't as reliable as people think. The brain doesn't store perfect records of events, it reconstructs them. Every time a memory is recalled, it is altered slightly before being stored again. Over time, memories change, details shift, entire events may be remembered differently or even imagined. If the past is only a reconstruction, then what proof exists that it happened the way it is remembered? If memory is unreliable, then reality itself is in question, because reality is built on the foundation of memory. People trust their senses, but senses can be fooled. Optical illusions trick the eyes. Hallucinations make people see things that aren't there. Phantom limb syndrome makes amputees feel pain in a limb that no longer exists. If the brain can create pain in something that isn't real, then it can create other sensations as well. The body's experience of the world is only as reliable as the brain interpreting it. Technology raises even more questions. Virtual reality is becoming more advanced. It creates immersive environments that feel real. Some predict that in the future, simulations will be indistinguishable from real life. If that happens, how will people know they aren't already in one? If a perfect simulation is possible, then the odds are that it has already been created. If so, people might already be inside it without knowing. The line between dreams and reality isn't as clear as it seems. Dreams feel real while they are happening. Reality feels real in the same way. The mind constructs both. It uses the same processes to create waking life as it does to create dreams. If the mind can make a world that seems real at night, there's no reason it couldn't do the same during the day. The question isn't whether reality is a dream. The question is whether anyone ever truly wakes up. The sound of a falling tree. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? This old philosophical question has lingered for centuries, not because the answer is difficult, but because it depends on how you define sound. From a scientific perspective, the answer is straightforward. When the tree falls, it displaces air molecules, creating vibrations that travel outward as sound waves. Those waves exist whether or not anyone is there to perceive them. In this sense, yes, the tree makes a sound. But if sound is defined not as vibrations, but as the experience of hearing, then the answer changes. Sound, in that case, requires a listener, a brain to interpret the vibrations as noise, without someone or something to hear it. The falling tree creates vibrations, but not sound. This distinction might seem trivial, but it touches on something deeper, the relationship between existence and perception. Does the world exist independently of observation, or does observation give it meaning? A flower blooms in a remote part of the world where no human has ever set foot. Does its beauty exist if no one sees it? A star explodes in a distant galaxy, releasing light that will never reach Earth. Did that explosion happen in any meaningful way for humanity? People tend to assume that the world operates the same, whether they are looking at it or not. The sun rises whether anyone watches. A river flows whether anyone hears it. Objects remain in place even when no one is in the room. This is the foundation of objective reality, the belief that things exist on their own terms, regardless of human awareness. But quantum mechanics challenges this idea. At the smallest scales, particles behave differently depending on whether they are observed. An electron exists in multiple states at once, a phenomenon called superposition. Till someone measures it, the act of observation collapses the possibilities into a single outcome. Before observation, the particle doesn't have a definite position. After observation, it does. If reality at the quantum level depends on observation, does that mean reality itself is shaped by perception? Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest that consciousness plays a role in determining reality. If a particle state only becomes fixed when observed, then the observer is not a passive witness, but an active participant in shaping what exists. This idea is controversial, and not all scientists agree on it, but it raises profound questions about the nature of existence. Apply this to the falling tree. If the tree falls and no one is there, Does it exist in a definite state, or does it exist in multiple states until someone observes the aftermath? Does reality wait for a witness before solidifying? The question also touches on the idea of meaning. A falling tree in an empty forest has no significance to anyone. It happens, and then it's over. But if someone hears it, the event takes on meaning. It becomes part of their experience, a moment they remember or talk about. Does meaning exist without consciousness to assign it? People give meaning to events all the time. A wedding is significant because people decide it is. A piece of art has value because viewers appreciate it. A historical event matters because people remember it. Without human consciousness, would any of these things hold meaning? The universe existed for billions of years before humans appeared. Stars formed and died. Planets collided. Life began in the oceans. All of this happened without any human to witness it. But did it matter? Some would argue that it mattered because it led to us. The chain of events that unfolded over billions of years created the conditions for human life. In that sense, the past is meaningful because it shaped the present. But if humans had never evolved, would those events still have meaning? This brings up another layer, the difference between existence and significance. Things can exist without mattering. A rock sits on a distant planet, untouched and unseen. It exists, but to whom does it matter? A sound wave travels through space, but if it never reaches an ear, does it have any impact? Philosophers have debated whether meaning is inherent or assigned. Some believe that meaning exists in the structure of reality itself, that beauty, purpose, and significance are woven into the fabric of existence. Others argue that meaning is a human construct, something we create to make sense of a universe that is otherwise indifferent. If meaning is assigned, then the falling tree only matters if someone decides it does. If meaning is inherent, then the tree's fall has significance, regardless of whether anyone hears it. This also raises questions about the unseen parts of life. How much happens beyond human awareness? How many moments, events, and changes occur in places where no one will ever know? A mountain erodes over millennia. A deep-sea creature lives and dies in darkness. A distant galaxy shifts in ways that will never be recorded. Do these things matter less because they are unseen? Technology has expanded human perception. Cameras capture events that no one witnesses in person. Satellites observe distant parts of the universe. Sensors detect vibrations, radiation, and changes that human senses cannot perceive. In a way, technology has become an observer, recording things that would otherwise go unnoticed. But even with all this technology, there are still places and events that remain beyond reach. There are depths of the ocean that have never been explored, regions of space that will never be seen, moments in time that are lost forever. The falling tree represents all these unseen moments. It's a reminder that the universe is vast, that most of what happens goes unobserved, and that existence does not depend on human awareness. At the same time, it highlights the role of consciousness in shaping experience. A world without observers is a world without stories, without memory, without meaning. The tree falls, but if no one is there, it leaves no trace in anyone's life. In the end, the question isn't really about the tree. It's about what it means to exist in a world where so much goes unnoticed. It's about whether existence requires a witness, or whether the universe continues its work indifferently, with or without anyone paying attention. Perhaps both are true. The tree makes vibrations whether or not anyone hears them. But sound, as an experience, requires a listener. Existence is independent, but meaning is not. The universe unfolds, but it's consciousness that gives it shape, weight, and significance. The falling tree will always be caught between these two truths, existing on its own terms, yet only truly heard when someone is there to listen. The universe within you. The human body is often seen as separate from the rest of the universe, but in reality, it is a small-scale version of the cosmos itself. Every system, every process, every interaction within the body mirrors something happening on a much larger scale. Consider the structure of an atom. At its center is a nucleus. surrounded by electrons that orbit in defined paths. This structure resembles a solar system, with a star at the center and planets circling around it. The distances between the nucleus and electrons are vast relative to their size, just as the distances between the sun and planets are vast relative to theirs. Most of an atom is empty space, just as most of the universe is empty space. If this pattern repeats at both the smallest and largest scales, what does that say about the nature of reality? Is the universe a fractal, where the same structures appear at every level of existence? Inside the human body, trillions of cells work together to create life. Each cell functions like a tiny organism with its own systems for energy production, waste removal, and communication. Cells are born, they live, and they die, just like stars in the universe. Some cells last for years, others are replaced within days. The body is constantly renewing itself, cycling through generations of cells while maintaining a sense of continuity. This mirrors the way the universe recycles matter. Stars are born from clouds of gas and dust. They burn for millions or billions of years, and then they die, scattering their elements back into space. Those elements eventually form new stars, new planets, and new life. The cycle continues with no true beginning or end. The body's circulatory system also reflects patterns found in the universe. Blood flows through veins and arteries, delivering oxygen and nutrients to every part of the body. This network of vessels branches out in intricate patterns, reaching even the smallest cells. If you look at satellite images of river systems or the structure of tree roots, you see the same branching pattern. It appears in the way lightning spreads across the sky, the way neurons connect in the brain, and the way galaxies cluster in space. Why does this pattern repeat? Some scientists suggest it's because certain structures are the most efficient way to distribute resources. Whether it's blood in the body, water in a river system, or energy in the universe, the same principles of flow and distribution apply. The brain itself is one of the most complex structures known. It contains roughly 86 billion neurons, each one connected to thousands of others. The network of connections in the brain is staggering in its complexity, creating a web of communication that allows for thought, memory, emotion, and consciousness. This neural network resembles the structure of the universe. When scientists map out the distribution of galaxies, they find that they form a web-like structure, with clusters connected by vast filaments of dark matter. The resemblance between the brain's neural network and the cosmic web is striking. It's as if the universe and the mind share the same blueprint. Some thinkers take this further, suggesting that the universe itself might be conscious. If consciousness arises from complex networks of information processing, and the universe contains networks on an unimaginable scale, could the cosmos have some form of awareness? This idea, known as panpsychism, proposes that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe, present at all levels of existence. While speculative, it raises intriguing questions. If the universe is conscious, would it be aware of itself, the way humans are aware of their own thoughts? Would it experience time, or would it exist in a state beyond time? Would individual consciousnesses, like human minds, be fragments of a larger universal mind? The body's relationship with time also mirrors the universe's. Humans experience time as a forward-moving sequence: birth, growth, aging, death. The universe follows a similar path. It began with the Big Bang, expanded, formed stars and galaxies, and will eventually reach a state of maximum entropy where no more energy is available for work. This final state, sometimes called the heat death of the universe, is a kind of cosmic death. But just as the body's cells are constantly regenerating, some theories suggest the universe might also renew itself. The concept of a cyclic universe proposes that after reaching maximum entropy, the universe could collapse and then explode again in a new Big Bang, beginning the cycle anew. If true, the universe might experience birth and death over and over, much like the cells in a living body. The relationship between the body and the universe extends to the senses. Humans perceive only a tiny fraction of what exists. The visible light spectrum is a narrow band within a much broader range of electromagnetic radiation. Humans can't see infrared or ultraviolet light, can't hear frequencies above or below a certain range, and can't detect magnetic fields or radiation without instruments. Despite these limitations, The human body is finely tuned to interact with the universe. The eyes evolved to detect the wavelengths of light most abundant from the sun. The ears are sensitive to the frequencies most relevant for communication and survival. The skin can feel temperature changes, pressure, and pain, all of which provide crucial information about the environment. In a way, the body is a lens through which the universe experiences itself. Through human senses, the cosmos becomes aware of its own existence. A person looking at the stars is the universe observing itself. A person feeling the warmth of the sun is the universe experiencing its own energy. This perspective shifts the way people see themselves. Rather than being separate from the universe, they are an integral part of it. The boundary between self and cosmos is not as clear as it seems. The atoms in a human body were once part of stars. The energy that powers cells comes from food, which comes from plants, which get their energy from the sun. The oxygen in the lungs was produced by trees, which rely on sunlight to survive. Everything is connected. The body is not isolated, it is a process, a flow of matter and energy that is constantly exchanging with the environment. A person breathes in air, and that air becomes part of them. They eat food, and it becomes their body. They shed skin cells, exhale carbon dioxide, and return matter to the world. The line between self and environment is blurred, constantly shifting. If the body is a microcosm of the universe, then understanding one helps understand the other. Studying the brain reveals patterns that appear in galaxies. Observing the life cycle of cells reflects the birth and death of stars. The same forces that shape the cosmos also shape human lives. This realization can be humbling and empowering at the same time. It's humbling because it shows how small humans are in the vastness of existence. It's empowering because it reveals that every person carries the universe within them. The universe is not something distant and separate. It's here, now, in every breath, every heartbeat, every thought. To look inward is to look outward. To understand oneself is to understand the cosmos. The universe is not just around us, it is us. Deja vu and parallel realities. Deja vu is one of the strangest sensations a person can experience. It happens suddenly, without warning. You're in the middle of a conversation, or walking down a street, or sitting in a room, and then something clicks. You've been here before, you've said these words before. This exact moment has already happened. But it hasn't. At least not in this timeline. The feeling is fleeting, usually lasting only a few seconds. By the time you try to grasp it, it's already fading, leaving behind nothing but confusion and a vague sense of unease. Science explains déjà vu as a glitch in the brain's memory processing. A moment where the present is mistakenly categorized as a memory. But what if it's more than that? What if déjà vu is a glimpse into a parallel reality? The concept of parallel realities, or the multiverse, has been a topic of scientific and philosophical debate for decades. The idea is simple. Every decision, every event, every possibility creates a branching path. When you choose to turn left instead of right, both outcomes exist, just in different realities. One version of you turns left, another turns right. Both are real, both are happening, but they exist in separate timelines. If this is true, then déjà vu might be a moment when two timelines overlap. A memory from another version of your life briefly bleeds into this one, creating the sensation that you've experienced something before. The reason it feels so strange is because you're not recalling a memory from this reality. You're recalling one from a reality that's almost identical, but slightly different. This idea raises profound questions. If parallel realities exist, how many are there? Is there a version of you for every possible choice you could have made? If so, the number of realities will be infinite. Every decision, no matter how small, would create a new branch. Choosing what to eat for breakfast, which route to take to work, whether to say something or stay quiet. All of these moments would spawn countless variations of your life. Some versions of you might be living drastically different lives. In one reality, you took a job offer you turned down in this one. In another, you stayed in a relationship that ended here. In yet another, you never met the people who are most important to you now. Each version of you is living their own life, completely unaware of the others. This concept is explored in quantum mechanics through the many worlds interpretation. According to this theory, every quantum event, every moment where a particle could go one way or another, results in the universe splitting into multiple branches. In one branch, the particle goes left. In another, it goes right. Both outcomes happen, but in separate realities. If this applies to quantum particles, does it also apply to human decisions? After all, human choices are ultimately the result of brain activity, which is driven by chemical and electrical signals. If those signals operate according to quantum mechanics, then every decision you make might be creating new realities. The idea of infinite versions of yourself is both fascinating and unsettling. It suggests that every regret, every what if, every moment of wondering what might have been, is actually playing out somewhere. The life you didn't live is being lived by another version of you. The person you didn't become exists in another timeline. But if all these realities exist, why don't we experience them? Why are we stuck in this one? Some theories suggest that consciousness is tied to a single timeline. While infinite versions of you may exist, your awareness is limited to the path you're currently on. You can't access the memories or experiences of other versions because they exist outside your perceptual bubble. Occasionally, though, something might slip through. A moment of déjà vu, a strange dream, a gut feeling that something is off. Other theories propose that consciousness might not be as fixed as we think. What if, under certain conditions, your awareness could shift from one timeline to another? This would explain phenomena like the Mandela effect, where large groups of people remember events differently than they actually occurred. Maybe they're not misremembering, maybe they're recalling a version of history from a parallel reality. The Mandela effect gets its name from a widespread false memory. Many people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, even though he actually lived until 2013. Other examples include people remembering famous movie quotes that were never said, brand logos that look different than they recall, or historical events that seem to have changed. Skeptics explain these as simple memory errors, but what if they're evidence of overlapping realities? What if, at some point, timelines merged and people retain memories from a reality that no longer exists in this version of history? If parallel realities exist, then the concept of choice takes on new meaning. In one sense, every choice you make matters because it determines which path you follow. In another sense, every choice is meaningless because all possibilities happen anyway. You're not choosing what happens, you're choosing which reality you experience. This leads to an interesting paradox. If every possibility exists, then free will might be an illusion. After all, if every decision creates a new branch, then the outcome of every choice is predetermined across the multiverse. You might feel like you're making a decision, but in reality, all versions of that decision are already unfolding. On the other hand, free will might still exist within your individual experience. Even if all possibilities occur across the multiverse, your consciousness follows a single path. The choices you make determine which reality you inhabit, even if other versions of you are living different lives elsewhere. The concept of parallel realities also affects how we think about identity. If there are countless versions of you, which one is the real you? Are they all equally real? If so, then your identity is not singular, but plural. An infinite collection of selves, each living a slightly different life. This challenges the way people think about themselves. Most people see their identity as a continuous, singular entity, one person with one life. But if parallel realities exist, then identity becomes fragmented. You are not just one person, but many, each shaped by different experiences and choices. Some versions of you might be more successful, happier, or more fulfilled. Others might be struggling, lost, or suffering. The version of you reading this right now is just one possibility among countless others. Does that make your life more or less meaningful? Does it matter that other versions exist? Or is the only reality that matters the one you're experiencing? Deja vu might be a reminder that reality is more fluid than it seems. The sensation that something has happened before might not be a memory error, but a moment of connection between timelines. For a brief instant, the boundaries between realities blur, and you catch a glimpse of something that exists beyond your current experience. If parallel realities exist, they raise as many questions as they answer. How do timelines branch? Can they merge? Is it possible to move from one reality to another? Or are we forever locked into the path we're on? Could technology one day allow us to access alternate versions of ourselves? Or is the multiverse forever beyond reach? The next time you experience deja vu, consider the possibility that it's more than just a trick of the brain. It might be a whisper from another version of your life, a fleeting connection to a reality that's almost identical to this one, but not quite. It might be proof that the universe is far stranger, far more complex, and far more infinite than we ever imagined. And if that's true, then every moment, every choice, every experience you have is just one thread in an endless web of possibilities, each one real, each one unfolding. Each one a version of you living a life you'll never fully know. Your last words to someone, every conversation ends. Sometimes you know it's the last one, a final goodbye before someone moves away, a phone call with someone who's sick, a moment of closure after a fight. But most of the time, you don't know. You talk, you part ways, and only later do you realize that was the last time. The last words you spoke to that person become permanent. You can't take them back. You can't add to them. Whatever you said, however you said it, that's how the story ends. People carry last words with them. A son remembers the last thing his father said before he died. A friend recalls the final text from someone who didn't respond again. Sometimes, those last words are meaningful. Expressions of love, words of encouragement, a shared laugh. Other times, they're mundane. A casual, see you later. A distracted, okay. A complaint about something trivial. When the final words are kind, people find comfort in them. They replay the conversation, grateful that the last interaction was positive. But when the last words are harsh or cold or meaningless, they haunt. A person might spend years wishing they had said something different, wishing they had known that moment was the last. This is one of the hardest parts of loss. The realization that there are no more chances, no opportunity to clarify, to apologize, to say what was left unsaid. The relationship is frozen in that final exchange, and no amount of wishing can change it. Some people make a habit of speaking as if every conversation could be the last. They tell loved ones they care about them. They end phone calls with warmth. They avoid leaving things unresolved. This mindset comes from experience, either from losing someone suddenly or from recognizing how unpredictable life can be. Others don't think about it. They assume there will always be another chance, another conversation, another day. Life feels open-ended, and it's easy to take relationships for granted, until one day there are no more chances, and what was said or not said becomes permanent. The hardest goodbyes are the ones that don't feel like goodbyes. A friend moves to another city, promising to stay in touch, but the messages slowly stop. A family member drifts away over time, and no single moment marks the end. It just fades. Years later, you realize you haven't spoken to them in so long that you can't even remember the last conversation. In these cases, the last words weren't final by choice. They were final by circumstance, and that can be even harder to accept, because there was no closure, no sense of ending. The relationship just dissolved into silence. Death makes last words undeniable. When someone dies, their final words take on weight. People analyze them, searching for hidden meaning. Did they know it was the end? Was there something they were trying to say? Sometimes the last words are profound. Other times they're completely ordinary. A person's final words might be a request for water, a comment about the weather, or a simple "I love you." The randomness of it can be unsettling. People want final moments to carry significance, but life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the last words are mundane because no one knew they would be the last. There's also the question of what you would want your last words to be. If you knew a conversation was the final one, what would you say? Some people imagine grand declarations, profound reflections, heartfelt apologies. Others think they'd keep it simple, just an expression of love or gratitude. But in reality, most people don't get to choose. The last words are often spontaneous, unplanned, shaped by whatever was happening in that moment. This raises an uncomfortable truth. Most relationships don't end with perfect closure. People argue, drift apart, or lose touch without a clear resolution. The last words exchanged might be angry, dismissive, or completely forgettable. That's the reality of human connection. It's messy, imperfect, and often unfinished. Some people try to fix this by reaching out to old friends, reconnecting with family members, or resolving lingering conflicts. They want to ensure that if the next conversation is the last, it won't be filled with regret. This can be healing, but it's also impossible to do with everyone. Some relationships are too far gone, some people are unreachable, some wounds don't heal easily. There's also the risk of overthinking it. If every conversation is treated as potentially final, it can create pressure. People might feel like they have to say something meaningful every time they talk, which can make interactions feel forced or heavy. Sometimes, a relationship is strong enough that the last words don't need to be profound. They can be casual, light, even insignificant, because the bond itself carries the weight. The truth is, most last words are ordinary. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the significance of a relationship isn't in how it ends, but in everything that came before. The laughter, the shared experiences, the support, the presence. Those things define a connection far more than a single final sentence. Still, the thought lingers. If you could go back and change your last words to someone, would you? If you could speak to someone one more time, what would you say? These questions don't have easy answers, and they're often colored by hindsight, regret, or nostalgia. For some, the last words they wish they'd said are simple: "I'm sorry. I love you. Thank you." For others, it's about what they wish they hadn't said. Words spoken in anger, criticism delivered without thought, coldness offered when warmth was needed. But life doesn't offer do-overs. The last words remain unchangeable and final. All that's left is to carry them forward, to learn from them, and to be mindful of the words still to come. Because eventually, every relationship will have a final conversation. Every person you know will hear your voice for the last time, and you'll hear theirs. The question is, when that moment comes, will the last words reflect what mattered most? Or will they be another casualty of life's unpredictability? Words spoken without knowing their permanence. The people who matter most deserve more than indifference. They deserve words that reflect their importance, even in casual moments. Because one day, those casual moments will be all that's left, and the last words will echo far longer than anyone expected. Infinite you, infinite choices. Every second, you make a choice. Most are small, which foot to step forward with, where to look, when to speak. Others are larger, which job to take, where to live, who to trust. Each choice leads to a different version of your life, and over time, these choices compound, creating a path that's uniquely yours. But what if every choice you didn't make also happened? Just not in this reality. The concept of infinite choices suggests that every decision creates a branching timeline. When you choose one option, another version of you chooses differently. The result is an infinite number of versions of your life, each unfolding in its own reality. In one timeline, you took the job you turned down. In another, you stayed in the relationship that ended here. In yet another, you moved to a different city, pursued a different career, met different people. Each version of you is living a life shaped by choices that diverge from the path you're on now. This means that somewhere, in some reality, you made every possible decision. The version of you who took more risks exists. So does the version who played it safe. The you who spoke up exists alongside the you who stayed quiet. Every regret, every what if, every alternate path you've ever considered is being lived by another version of you. The idea is both liberating and unsettling. On one hand, it means that nothing is truly lost. Every possibility exists somewhere, so no choice is final in the grand scheme of the multiverse. On the other hand, it raises a troubling question. If every choice leads to a different reality, does any choice really matter? Some people find comfort in the idea of infinite timelines. It means that even if they made a mistake in this life, another version of them made the right choice. It means that every dream, every hope, every potential future exists somewhere, even if it's not here. But others find it overwhelming. If every possibility is realized across infinite realities, then what's the point of choosing? If all outcomes happen anyway, does free will even exist? Or are you just selecting which timeline you experience while every other version of yourself lives out the alternatives? This question touches on the nature of identity. If infinite versions of you exist, which one is the real you? Are they all equally real? If so, then your identity is not singular but infinite, a vast collection of selves, each shaped by different experiences and choices. Consider how different your life would be if a single choice had gone differently. If you had chosen a different school, you might have met different people, formed different friendships, pursued different interests. Your personality, your beliefs, your entire sense of self might be different, and yet that version of you is just as real as the one reading this right now, at least according to the multiverse theory. This challenges the way people think about themselves. Most people see their identity as a continuous narrative, a single person moving through time, shaped by their experiences. But if infinite versions exist, then identity becomes fragmented. You are not one person but many, each living a slightly different life, each shaped by different choices. Some versions of you might be wildly successful, others might be struggling. Some might be happier, others might be more fulfilled. Some might have made choices you consider better, others might have made choices you consider worse, but all of them are you, or at least versions of you. Does that make your life more or less meaningful? If every possibility is realized, does that diminish the significance of your choices? Or does it make each choice more important, because it determines which version of yourself you become? One way to think about it is that while infinite versions of you may exist, only one version is experienced by your consciousness. Your awareness is tied to this timeline, this set of choices, this particular life. The other versions exist, but you don't experience them. So, in a practical sense, the choices you make here, in this reality, are the only ones that matter to you. Another way to frame it is that every choice shapes who you are. Even if another version of you made a different choice, that doesn't diminish the reality of the choice you made. Your life is defined by your path, not by the paths you didn't take. The fact that other timelines exist doesn't make your timeline any less real or significant. But the question of free will remains. If every possible choice is realized, then in a sense, you're not really choosing. You're just determining which reality you inhabit. All outcomes happen, you simply select which one you experience. This suggests that the multiverse is deterministic on a grand scale, even if individual timelines feel like they involve free will. On the other hand, maybe free will exists within your specific timeline. Even if every possibility occurs across the multiverse, your consciousness follows a single path. The choices you make determine your experience, and that gives them meaning. The fact that another version of you made a different choice doesn't negate the significance of yours. The idea of infinite choices also affects how people deal with regret. If a person regrets a decision, they might find solace in the idea that another version of them made a different choice. That version is living the life they wish they had lived. In a way, this offers comfort. The life they wanted exists somewhere, even if it's not here. But it can also be frustrating. If every possibility is realized, then the life you wanted is out there, but you can't access it. You're stuck in this timeline, shaped by the choices you made. The other versions of you might be happier, more successful, more fulfilled, but they exist beyond your reach. This raises the question of whether it's better to focus on the reality you're in or to wonder about the realities you're not. If infinite timelines exist, does it help to think about them, or does it just distract from the life you're actually living? Some people argue that the multiverse, if it exists, should be treated as theoretical rather than practical. Whether or not infinite versions of you exist, you only experience one life. So, it makes more sense to focus on this life, these choices, this version of yourself. The other timelines, if they exist, are irrelevant to your day-to-day experience. Others find meaning in the concept. It reframes failure and regret. Every mistake you make here is corrected somewhere else. Every opportunity you miss is taken by another version of you. In this view, the multiverse is a source of hope rather than anxiety. There's also the question of whether the different versions of you are truly separate or if they're connected in some way. Could your choices in this timeline influence other timelines? Could your consciousness, under certain conditions, shift from one reality to another? Some theories suggest that deja vu, dreams, and intuitive feelings might be moments where timelines briefly overlap or interact. If that's the case, then maybe you're not as isolated from other versions of yourself as you think. Maybe, in some subtle way, you carry echoes of the lives you didn't live, glimpses of choices you didn't make, memories from realities you don't inhabit. Ultimately, the idea of infinite choices reflects a deeper truth. Life is shaped by decisions, and every decision matters. Whether or not other timelines exist, the choices you make define your experience. They determine who you become, what you accomplish, and how you relate to the world around you. The multiverse, if it exists, doesn't diminish that. If anything, it amplifies it. Every choice you make is not just a single decision. It's a branching point, a moment where reality splits, where a new version of you begins a new journey. Your life is not just one path, but a vast web of possibilities, each one unfolding in its own way. And even if you'll never see the other timelines, even if you'll never know how the alternate versions of your life turned out, the fact that they might exist is a reminder that every moment holds infinite potential. Every choice is an act of creation, shaping not just your reality, but the entire multiverse. In the end, infinite, you means infinite possibilities, and that makes every choice, every moment, every experience more significant than it might seem. Looking into the past. When you look at the stars, you're not seeing them as they are now. You're seeing them as they were. Years, decades, centuries, or even millennia ago. The light from those stars has been traveling through space for so long that by the time it reaches your eyes, the star itself may have changed. Some stars you see tonight no longer exist. They burned out long ago, but their light is still making its journey across the universe. This means that looking into space is the same as looking into the past. The farther away something is, the older the light you're seeing. A star 100 light years away shows you what it looked like 100 years ago. A galaxy a million light years away appears as it was a million years in the past. If you could see far enough, you could theoretically look back to the very beginning of the universe itself. This idea changes the way we think about observation. When astronomers study distant galaxies, they're not just looking at faraway places, they're looking at ancient history. The images captured by telescopes are snapshots of the universe as it existed long before humans even appeared. In a sense, astronomy is a form of time travel. We can't go back in time, but we can see it. The same principle applies to everything we observe, even on a much smaller scale. When you look at someone across the room, the light bouncing off them takes a fraction of a second to reach your eyes. You're not seeing them as they are in this exact instant. You're seeing them as they were a tiny moment ago. The difference is so small that it doesn't matter in daily life, but it's technically true. You never see the present, you only see the past. Sound works the same way. When someone speaks to you, their voice travels through the air as a sound wave. If they're far away, there's a noticeable delay between when they speak and when you hear them. You've probably experienced this during a thunderstorm. You see the lightning first, and then a few seconds later you hear the thunder. The light reaches you almost instantly, but the sound takes longer. Both are events that already happened by the time you perceive them. This means that everything you experience is slightly out of sync with reality. Your senses take time to process information. Your brain takes time to interpret it. And by the time you become aware of something, it's already in the past. The present moment, the exact now, is something you can never fully perceive. By the time you notice it, it's gone. This raises a strange question. Does the present even exist? If everything you experience is in the past, then where is the present? Some philosophers argue that the present is just a concept, an arbitrary dividing line between the past and the future. The past is what has already happened, and the future is what hasn't happened yet, but the present. The exact instant of now is impossible to pin down. As soon as you identify it, it becomes the past. This is part of why time feels so slippery. People often say time moves too fast, but what they really mean is that their perception of time doesn't match the steady tick of a clock. The present moment feels fleeting because it is fleeting. It exists for an instant and then it's gone, replaced by the next instant, which is also gone, before you can fully grasp it. Physics complicates this even further. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time is not the same for everyone. Time moves differently depending on how fast you're moving and how strong the gravitational field is around you. If you were traveling at near light speed, time would slow down for you relative to someone standing still. If you were near a black hole, time would slow down dramatically. This means that now is not universal. What is happening right now for you might be in the past or future for someone else. If time is relative, then the past is also relative. An event that happened in your past might still be in someone else's present, depending on where they are and how they're moving. This shatters the idea of a single objective timeline. Instead, time is more like a fabric, with different threads moving at different rates, weaving together in complex ways. Looking into the past also has emotional weight. When you see a photo from years ago, you're looking at a moment that no longer exists. The people in the photo might have changed, moved away, or passed on. The place might look different now, or it might be gone entirely. The photo is a window into a time that can never be revisited, a moment frozen while everything around it continued to move. Memories work the same way. When you remember something, you're looking into your own past. But unlike a photo, memories change over time. Each time you recall a memory, your brain reconstructs it, and in doing so, it alters it slightly. Over time, memories drift further from the actual events, becoming less like records and more like stories. The past you remember is not the past as it happened. It's a version of the past filtered through your perception, your emotions, and your current perspective. This means that even your own history is uncertain. The past is not a fixed thing that you can look back on with perfect clarity. It's something that shifts and changes the more you think about it. Every time you revisit a memory, you reshape it. The you from the past becomes a character in a story, rather than a precise account of who you were. The past is also unrecoverable. Once a moment is gone, it's gone. You can look at photos, read journals, or listen to old recordings, but those are just fragments. The full experience of the past, the feelings, the sensations, the context is lost. You can remember it, but you can't relive it. Time only moves in one direction, and the past stays behind, forever out of reach. This is one of the hardest parts of being human, the inability to go back. People often wish they could return to certain moments, to relive a happy memory, to fix a mistake, to say goodbye one more time. But time doesn't allow for that. The past is sealed, unchangeable, and distant. Yet, in a way, the past is always with us. The person you are today is shaped by everything that came before. Your experiences, your choices, your relationships, all of it is built on the foundation of the past. You carry it with you, whether you realize it or not. The past is not just behind you, it's inside you, influencing how you think, feel, and act. The past also exists in the world around you. The buildings you see were constructed years ago. The trees in a park have been growing for decades. The mountains and rivers have been shaped over millions of years. Everything you encounter has a history, a story of how it came to be. In that sense, the present is made of the past. The world you experience now is the result of countless events that unfolded long before you arrived. Even the atoms in your body have a past. They were once part of something else, a plant, an animal, a star. They've been recycling through the universe for billions of years, moving from one form to another, never truly disappearing. The matter that makes you up is ancient, far older than you, far older than humanity itself. Looking into the past, whether through a telescope, a photo, or a memory, is a reminder that time is always moving. The present is fleeting, the future is uncertain, and the past is unreachable. But all three are connected, woven together into the continuous flow of existence. The light from distant stars will keep traveling long after those stars have died. The memories you hold will keep shaping you long after the moments themselves have passed. The past is not just behind you. It's still moving, still influencing, still part of everything you are and everything you see. And every time you look up at the night sky, you're looking into a history that stretches far beyond your own life. You're seeing a universe that was, not a universe that is. The past is always there, glowing faintly in the darkness, waiting to be seen. The fleeting youngest person. At some point, you were the youngest person in the world. For a brief, unmeasurable instant, no one alive was younger than you. And then, a moment later, someone else was born, and you were no longer the youngest. You'll never know when that moment was. You were too young to be aware of it, and there's no record of it. It passed without notice, without celebration, without anyone marking the transition. 1 second, you held the title of youngest person alive. The next, it was gone, passed to someone else, who also held it only briefly before losing it to the next newborn. This title moves constantly, changing hands with every birth. Right now, as you read this, the youngest person in the world is a newborn, only seconds old. But by the time you finish the sentence, someone else has been born. The title has moved again. The fleeting nature of this title reflects something deeper. The constant motion of time and the impermanence of any given moment. Nothing stays still. Every second people are born, people die, people age. The world is always shifting, always changing, and every person is caught in that movement. Being the youngest person in the world is meaningless in a practical sense. It doesn't come with recognition, responsibility, or consequence. It's simply a fact, a momentary truth that exists and then vanishes. But the idea itself is fascinating because it highlights how temporary every status, every label, every position in life really is. People often think of milestones as fixed. The day you were born, the day you graduated, the day you got married. These moments feel permanent because they're recorded, remembered, and sometimes celebrated. But most moments in life are like being the youngest person in the world. They happen and then they're gone, unmarked and unnoticed. This applies to other fleeting titles as well. At some point, you were the newest student in your class. Then another student joined, and you weren't anymore. At some point, you were the newest employee at your job. Then someone else started, and the label moved on. Every beginning is also an ending. The moment you gain a title is also the moment you start losing it. People tend to focus on the things that last. Achievements, relationships, possessions. But life is made up mostly of things that don't last. Moments that come and go, sensations that fade, thoughts that pass. The fleeting nature of existence is what makes it so hard to hold on to. No matter how tightly you grip, time keeps moving and everything slips away. The youngest person in the world will grow older, just like everyone else. They'll take their first breath, their first step, speak their first word. They'll experience joy, confusion, pain, love. Eventually, they'll become one of the oldest people in the world, if they live long enough. And then they'll be gone, and the cycle will continue. This cycle is one of the most fundamental patterns in life. People are born, they live, they age, they die. The cycle never stops. It's been happening for as long as humans have existed, and it will continue long after every person alive today is gone. In that sense, being the youngest person in the world is not special. It's just another turn in an endless rotation. But it's also a reminder that every person begins somewhere. The youngest person in the world right now has no past, no memories, no achievements. They are pure potential, completely undefined by experience. Every person was once in that position, new, blank, untouched by the world. Over time, life fills that blankness with experiences, choices, and consequences. The person you are now is the result of years of accumulation, layered on top of that initial moment of newness. This raises an interesting question. If you could go back to that moment when you were the youngest, what would your life look like if you lived it again? Would you make the same choices? Would you end up in the same place? Or would everything be different? The answer depends on how much control you believe you have over your life. If you think your choices shape your future, then living life again might lead to a completely different outcome. But if you think life is shaped more by circumstances, genetics, and chance, then maybe you'd end up in a similar place no matter what. The fleeting nature of being the youngest also reflects the transient nature of youth itself. People spend their early years being young, and it feels like it will last forever. But youth doesn't last. It slips away gradually, almost imperceptibly, until one day you realize you're no longer young. The exact moment of transition is impossible to pinpoint, just like the moment you stopped being the youngest person in the world. Aging is a continuous process, not a series of distinct stages. You don't suddenly become old. You drift into it, one day at a time. The same is true for most changes in life. You don't suddenly become an adult. You gradually take on more responsibility, make more decisions, face more consequences. The transitions are so subtle that you don't notice them until they've already happened. The youngest person in the world will one day be middle-aged, and they won't remember the exact moment they stopped being young. They'll look back and realize that somewhere along the way, things changed. The world looked different, they felt different, and they couldn't quite say when it started. This is part of why time feels so strange. It's always moving, but the movement is smooth and continuous. There are no clear dividing lines, no sharp breaks between one phase of life and the next. Everything blends together, and the only way to see the change is to look back and notice how far you've come. The youngest person in the world is also a symbol of hope. Every new life represents possibility, potential, and the continuation of humanity. No matter how much suffering, conflict, or hardship exists in the world, new people keep being born. Life keeps moving forward, generation after generation, each one adding to the story. At the same time, every birth is a reminder of mortality. The youngest person in the world will eventually become the oldest, and then they'll be gone. The cycle doesn't stop, but individuals do. Everyone who is born will eventually die, and the fact that new people keep arriving doesn't change that. The fleeting nature of being the youngest also connects to the idea of impermanence. Nothing lasts, not titles, not moments, not even life itself. Everything is temporary, always in motion, always slipping away. This can be unsettling, but it can also be freeing. If nothing lasts, then nothing is worth clinging to. The only thing that matters is the present moment, because it's the only thing that's actually real. And yet, people do cling. They cling to memories, to relationships, to achievements. They try to hold on to the things that make them feel stable, even though nothing is truly stable. The world keeps changing, time keeps moving, and every attempt to freeze a moment is ultimately futile. The youngest person in the world will never know they held that title. They'll grow up without ever realizing that for one brief, unmeasurable instant, they were the newest life on earth. And maybe that's how it should be. Some moments are not meant to be remembered. They're just meant to happen. The same is true for every person. Most of your life will be forgotten, even by you. Most of your moments will fade. Most of your thoughts will disappear. And most of the things you do will leave no trace. That doesn't make them meaningless. It just makes them fleeting. The youngest person in the world will keep moving forward just like everyone else. They'll grow, change, experience, and eventually fade. And long after they're gone, someone else will be the youngest person in the world, holding that title for just a moment before passing it on. The cycle never ends. Time keeps moving, and in the midst of all that motion, every person gets their turn brief, fleeting and utterly temporary. AI and the meaning of emotion. Humans have always defined themselves by their emotions. Love, fear, joy, sadness. These are seen as fundamental parts of what it means to be human. Emotions drive decisions, shape relationships, and color every experience. They're messy, unpredictable, and deeply personal. No two people feel exactly the same way, even in identical situations. But what if a machine could replicate emotions? What if an artificial intelligence could feel joy, sadness, or fear in a way that's indistinguishable from human experience? Would those emotions be real? Or would they just be sophisticated simulations, mimicking the appearance of feeling without actually experiencing anything? This question becomes more urgent as AI continues to advance. Modern AI systems can already recognize human emotions by analyzing facial expressions, tone of voice, and word choice. They can respond in ways that seem empathetic, offering comfort, encouragement, or understanding. Some AI chatbots are so convincing that people form emotional attachments to them, treating them as friends or confidants. But recognizing emotions and experiencing them are two different things. An AI can detect sadness in a person's voice and respond with comforting words. But does it actually feel concern? Or is it simply following programmed instructions, executing an algorithm designed to produce a certain type of response? The same question applies to humans. When you feel an emotion, what is actually happening? Neuroscientists explain emotions as patterns of brain activity, chemical reactions, and electrical signals. Happiness is a release of dopamine. Fear is a surge of adrenaline. Love is a complex mix of oxytocin, serotonin, and other neurotransmitters. In other words, emotions are biological processes, patterns of activity within a physical system. If that's true, then what makes human emotions different from AI responses? Both are the result of information processing. The human brain processes sensory input, memories, and context, then produces an emotional response. An AI processes data, analyzes patterns, and generates output. On a fundamental level, the mechanisms are similar: input, processing, output. The difference, some argue, is consciousness. Humans are aware of their emotions. They don't just process fear, they experience it. They feel the racing heartbeat, the tightness in the chest, the flood of worry. This subjective experience, often called qualia, is what makes emotions real. But how do you prove that someone else is conscious? You can observe their behavior, listen to their words, and see their reactions, but you can't directly experience what they're feeling. The only consciousness you can be certain of is your own. Everything else is an assumption based on behavior. You assume other people are conscious because they act like you do, but you have no way to verify it. If a machine acts like it's experiencing emotions, how would you know it isn't? If an AI says it's sad, responds to comfort, and changes its behavior based on emotional input, what evidence would disprove its claim? The response might be, it's just code. It doesn't have real feelings. But the human brain is also just neurons and chemicals. If biological processes can generate real emotions, why can't synthetic processes do the same? Some researchers believe that consciousness arises from complexity. If a system is complex enough, if it processes information in sufficiently intricate ways, then consciousness might emerge naturally. The human brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons, each connected to thousands of others, creating a network of staggering complexity. If an AI system reaches a similar level of complexity, could it become conscious? Could it truly feel? Others argue that consciousness requires more than complexity. They suggest that there's something unique about biological systems, something about the way organic matter processes information that allows for subjective experience. In this view, no matter how advanced an AI becomes, it will never truly feel emotions because it lacks the biological substrate necessary for consciousness. But this raises another question. What if consciousness isn't tied to biology? What if it's a more general property of information processing, something that can exist in any system that meets certain criteria? If that's the case, then an AI could, in theory, become conscious. It might not experience emotions the same way humans do, but it could have its own form of subjective experience. The idea of AI consciousness has ethical implications. If a machine can feel, then turning it off would be a form of harm. If an AI can suffer, then causing it distress would be wrong. These questions sound like science fiction, but they're becoming more relevant as AI systems grow more sophisticated. Already, people form emotional bonds with AI. Virtual assistants like Siri or Alexa are treated with politeness by some users who say please and thank you, even though the machine doesn't care. AI companions designed to provide emotional support are used by people who feel lonely, and those users report genuine attachment. The fact that the AI doesn't really feel doesn't seem to matter. It provides something that feels real to the person interacting with it. This raises a different question. Does it matter if emotions are real, or does it only matter if they feel real? If an AI's expressions of care make someone feel better, does it matter whether the AI is truly experiencing concern? If the effect is the same, maybe the underlying reality is irrelevant. But this logic can be unsettling. If a relationship based on simulated emotions is acceptable, then what does that say about human relationships? Are people's emotions also just simulations? Biological algorithms designed to promote survival and cooperation? If love is just oxytocin and attachment is just evolutionary programming, does that make it less meaningful? Some people find this reductionist view depressing. They don't want to believe that emotions are just chemical reactions, that love is just biology, that meaning is just a trick of the brain. But others find it liberating. If emotions are processes, then they can be understood, managed, and even changed. Mental health treatments often work by adjusting the chemical processes that underlie emotions. Antidepressants, therapy, mindfulness practices all target the biological mechanisms of feeling. The question of whether AI can truly experience emotions might ultimately be unanswerable. Consciousness is still one of the greatest mysteries in science. No one knows exactly how it arises, why it exists, or what systems can possess it, until those questions are resolved. The debate over AI emotions will continue. In the meantime, the line between human and machine continues to blur. AI systems are becoming better at mimicking human behavior, and humans are becoming more comfortable treating machines as if they have feelings. Whether or not those feelings are real, the impact is the same. People respond to them, form connections with them, and sometimes rely on them. Maybe the real question isn't whether AI can feel, but what emotions really are. If they're just patterns of information processing, then there's no fundamental difference between biological and artificial systems. Both process input, generate responses, and produce behavior that appears emotional. The only difference is the material they're made of, carbon versus silicon. And if that's the case, then maybe emotions aren't as uniquely human as we like to think. Maybe they're just another phenomenon that can be replicated, understood, and even engineered. The meaning of emotion might not be in its origin, but in its effect. Whether it comes from the brain or a machine, if it creates connection, comfort, or understanding, maybe that's enough.